talking about the 7 mountains of social influence: church, family, education, media, arts and entertainment, business. Sometimes people add commerce into that, commerce and business and government, and how the church is I like it better in this format. The church is supposed to influence and oversee all of them. We're not, if I slide back down, we're not equal with them because we are the only one that produces eternal fruit. The rest are good. There's nothing, I mean, we need the rest for everything that happens in this earth, but the church is the only one that produces eternal fruit. So I set it up that way. So what we did last Sunday is we broke up into groups and we had people start in praying about this, what we're supposed to do, because it would appear as though the church has totally failed our mission there. And I suppose totally is probably an exaggeration, because we do have God involved with families. We do have a few godly people in education. I hope we have a few in media. Nobody sticks out to me right at the moment. A&E, arts and entertainment, there's a few in there. Government, there's a few in there. Business, yeah, we've got Christian businessmen. But as a whole, looking at those areas, the church is not predominant in influencing what goes on in those areas. And that's where my statement comes out of, because the church is supposed to be dominant in influencing everything that happens on this earth. And we're not, because we're not involved. So the question that we were, everything starts with prayer. You've got to, I showed you this picture last Sunday. You've got to move to that at some point, or nothing gets done. But yet the road, the pathway is paved with prayer. So it starts with prayer, so there's a highway to run on. But what did we do to get here? And what do we need to do to get out of this spot? Because, I'm preaching to the choir here, but I'm just kind of setting the scene where we're going. We are at a turning point in this country. And if we don't get this thing back on course with more Christian Judeo values and morals, we're going to lose this thing. And once you've lost it to socialism, or once you've lost it to some form of dictatorship, which we see a little bit of now, but not a lot yet, we still have people pushing back. But once you've lost it to that, it's really hard to get back, because then they have the chokehold on you, and when you try to get back, they just choke you down. So now is the time to change this. So with that in mind, I was talking to, I think it was Kevin, I was talking to this last week. And I learned something at the last Faith and Freedom, which is all elections, all the corruption, everything that this got to get fixed, this got to get fixed, this got to get fixed, and it does. But I didn't realize the way you fix it is at the township and the county level. I thought we were supposed to fix it at the state and federal government level. And our representatives need to get their acts together so this gets fixed. Well, in reality, it's fixed on the township and county level, and the reason it's broken is because the liberal aspect of society, and I'm not talking down at them, I'm just stating a fact, the liberal aspect of society is very active right now in politics, and conservatives are not. And like at the last Faith and Freedom meeting, they said, if we want to change the election process to get it honest again, we have to get involved and become election judges or polling judges. Amen. Because in the last election, the liberal ones who showed up to watch over to make sure it was done right versus the conservative ones who showed up to watch over, make sure it was done right, we were outnumbered 10-1. So we can pray all we want, but somebody's got to get in there, boots on the floor, and say, I'm going to get trained to become a polling judge, and I'm going to show up on the election days now. It's kind of like they were saying. They've turned election day into election season. You can start 21 days, I think, before election day. And last time they went 7 days after, which is perfect for cheating. I mean, it's like, oh, we didn't win? Well, we've got 7 days to fix that. You know, it's like, and who do we got to blame? Us. Us. We're not involved. They say it's all cleared up in the township voting booth and the county at the highest level, because everything from there is gathered and moved. So the cheating takes place on those township, county levels and then gets passed on. And if it's going to get caught, it's going to get caught on that level, because all the votes start at the bottom and move up. So when they change the voting machines, they have to start at the bottom. And that's why they want all of them to have access to Wi-Fi, because they have to change all of them. Well, that's where somebody has to be there and go, that just changed. And nobody put any votes in. Something's wrong. Yep, exactly. And if we're not there doing that, they can do whatever they want to do. Okay? So it falls back on us again. Well, if we're looking at biblical morality or justice, that's only going to come through the Christian. I don't think there's a lot of unbelievers who are concerned about making sure that biblical justice and morality is taking place. It's the believers who have to be concerned about that. That's us. The problem is, for the last 50, 60 years, we've been totally disinterested in that. Why that happened, I'm not sure, because I'm not that old to know where did it start that the church pulled back from influencing and making sure all aspects stay righteous. All 6 mountains besides the church one. We lost that someplace. Now, to take it a step deeper, the faith and freedom meetings are a little better. The community action teams are not good at all. Anybody 40 years and under, how many do we have at either one of these 2 meetings? I'm not, don't get a chip on your shoulder going, oh, you're picking on us. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm stating fact. Why aren't the younger generation there? They're not interested. And why aren't they interested? Because somehow we have failed. I mean, let's just admit it. I mean, the only way you fix something is to admit it's broken. You got to start there. As long as you keep claiming it's good, you'll never work on it. Even the older generation, many of them are not interested. And what the question was last week is, how did that get in the church? How do we get it out of the church? And I'm not talking about Word of Life. I'm talking about America, Christianity in America. How did that get in? And how do we get it out? And we prayed about it some here, and the assignment was pray about it at home. Because if we don't get it out, if the majority of the people who believe in God's way do nothing, you need a very small minority to rule the whole works. In democracy, in a democratic republic, that's what we live in. We're represented by representatives who we put there. That's the democratic part. If the majority of people who say, I want God in this country, are not involved, you only need a few to make all the rules the rest of us will live with. So how do we get back involved? Because you can't do this without involvement. So how do we get back involved? So just as a little bit before I want to break us up in groups and pray over this stuff again, but just as a little bit of, hopefully we've gained a little bit of something the Holy Spirit shared with us last week or since last weekend. What is he telling us? What do we have to do to break the bad cycle? Because we're caught in a bad cycle now. As Christians in America, there's a lot of Christians in America don't even vote. And then there's a lot of Christians in America that vote the wrong way because they're not voting biblical morality or scripture. They're voting their own desires. And it's like, well, what's the groundwork where we start to change this? You say, well, I didn't know that prayer was turning into a political meeting. This has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with the Christian church is the one who is supposed to be dictating the morality of this nation and, frankly, the world. That is God's design for us. And I proved that to you last week just by the name church, Ekklesia, or Ekklesia, depending upon how you pronounce it. That's our God-given mandate. So if we're not doing it, we drop the ball. So how do we fix this? Did God show anybody anything? Even an idea?
Well, what he showed me wasn't so much how to fix it, but was this how serious he sees the problem. And he basically showed me when we were praying that we, as the church, are basically in bed with the enemy because we're lined up with him when we don't do anything, when we don't speak out, or as serious. He sees this as a serious thing, a serious sin against us, so to speak. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but yeah.
Simply because we're not doing anything, we're going along with it?
Yeah, by being silent and not standing up and not speaking, we are lined up with the enemy because we're allowing it then to take place.
Okay, so the thing we need to learn there is we need to do more than just be quiet.
Yeah.
Okay? Dave, can you run the mic in case anybody else has anything to share? Anybody else right up front here?
The thing that God's showing me in it is we, the church, have put so much stock in the prophetic realms and absolved ourselves of any kind of responsibility, or it's been prophesied, so therefore it's going to be, and just we have no involvement to get in. The main message I'm hearing, even in those that I respect in the church, is exactly what Pastor's saying is, you got to get off your duff. We got to get involved. We got to get in every aspect. Everything that we have abhorred and just never even had no interest in, we have to take a stance like those in 1776 when they were founding our country, and there were divisions there, but there was enough people that stood up and said, no, this is wrong, we're going to push back against it.
Okay.
I just wanted to share, and the Lord's really been speaking to me about owning it. As far as where we're at, what's happened, we own that thing, and that the repentance of that brings us back to the position of choosing whom you'll serve. And in that, you choose, if you're going to serve him, then serve him. Stand up with who he is and what he is in you. And that goes back to your identity again, where it says, who are you? What do you believe? And are you willing to stand for what you believe? Because like Vicki said, if you're silent, you're going along with the enemy. You're on the other side. You cannot afford to be silent. You can't afford to sit there and not say anything, and yet be considering, and then tell yourself that you're actually standing up. The only way you stand up is when the mouth moves
Yeah.
and it proclaims what it is. We need to proclaim, we need to take that stand like Dean just said, but it's more than that. It's in here. Where are you at? Who are you? Are you going to stand? And that goes back to knowing that you stand for something way bigger than what you are.
Yep.
And it's putting that all together.
I think that the separation of church and state has taken seed even in the older generation, and we're not doing anything anymore. We're not fighting against the fact that our rights are being taken, and it's like, I'm on my way out with the hay, you know? And we're like a frog's butt in a frying pan. We're just adjusting and adjusting and adjusting, and God forbid that has to be tough on this country before we wake up.
Wake up. Yeah.
We are so pampered, and we don't even know it.
So we're looking for how do we pray about this? How do we approach this in what everybody's saying?
This is something from my own experiences and a little bit of an answer from the Lord when I prayed about it. I had spoken to Dieta at one of the Faith and Freedoms about how to get the younger generation involved. And the best way I've found to get the younger generation involved, at least in politics, I don't know if some of the people I've spoken to are believers or not, but a lot of them admit that they're not involved because their entire life growing up, they feel like they were talked at about all of this and told what to do and told how to vote, told how to think by whether it be their parents, someone in the school system, the television, whatever it may be. So a lot of them, they do have opinions. They just feel they can't speak them out. So just be that person who's willing to sit and listen to them and just let them talk. Don't correct them. Don't tell them their thinking's wrong. Let them talk. Let them get it all out. And then when they finally get it all out, ask those questions, those simple questions that'll get them thinking. Don't try to convince them otherwise, because if they truly want to know more, they will come to you with the questions they have, and that's when you can share your knowledge and share the truth.
Good. Yep, I like it. That's presuming they've engaged. Let them talk. We still have to get them talking. So a lot of them don't want to even talk about scriptural morality issues and how it applies to culture, which is supposed to affect everything, including the second from the last, government. So we have to pray they talk, they engage. Listen no matter what they're saying. Don't contradict. Yep. And then try to reason. Anybody else got anything? Here is what the Lord gave me. And I'll just go to it. Maybe this is still best. It's out of the Laodicean church. He says, "For I know the record of your works and what you are doing. You're neither hot or cold." And it's like, well, what would make a church or a church person? They're not against God. They're not, I mean, they want to be a Christian and go to heaven, so they're not cold, but they're not really hot after anything either. It's just kind of doing what the bare minimum is to get there, to be a Christian. Verse 17 is where, I was reading this, I'm going, what is it? For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, grown wealthy, and I am in need of nothing. And then he gives his response to that. But right there, he stopped me and he ran a word through my mind that I thought, and I had to really think about that. I am rich, I have prospered and grown wealthy, and I'm in need of nothing. The need of nothing. He ran this word through my mind. Inconvenienced. I think the church has gotten to the point we don't want to be inconvenienced. We want things to change. Somebody needs to get in there and do it. I don't want my life to be inconvenienced, though. Somebody else needs to do it. And everybody's sitting looking the same way. It's a spirit of the last day church. I don't you know, that if I get involved, that's our game night. We get together with friends. We'd have to give that up. I don't want to be inconvenienced. One that was brought up at the last Faith and Freedom meeting. Well, we don't like to keep our kids up past 7 o'clock. You know, I don't want to be inconvenienced because then the next day they're tired and they're crabby. Well, you're talking to the choir here. You realize that, and this was that somebody asked the question, and Dale got a little huffy over that one. And later we talked about it, me and him. He didn't want to offend anybody. He said, but I'm tired of the lame excuses. He said, we all raise kids. And in our generation, there was nobody who stayed home so their kids could go to bed at 7 or 7:30. You don't do anything if that's the case. And are they a little tired and crabby the next day? Yeah. But, you know what? They lived and we lived. And then I'll add something to what he had to say. That's kind of what he said. And I'll add something to it. How about one of you stay home and watch the kids and the other get involved? And then the next time around, the other one stay home. I mean, if you're dead set on having your kids in bed by 7:30, which I think that's kind of hilarious because by the time they're 5, 6, 7, you can put them to bed at 7:30, but they're not asleep until 9, 9:30, 10. They're playing, they're singing, they're not sleeping anyway. So you might as well been at a meeting, got something out of it, and bring them home, put them to bed when they're actually tired. Now, as babies, yes, I get they'll go to sleep at 7:30. But we raised a whole slew of kids. And one of the most frustrating things is having to go back into that room 4 or 5 times, try to convince them to go to sleep. And by the time you get them convinced, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night. So why do we start at 7:30? It's not working anyway. That's just my thoughts from experience. Now, if you're out climbing a mountain and you've got them exhausted, yeah, they'll go to bed at 7:30. But if all they did was go to school and come home and play a little bit and eat supper, they're not going to go to sleep at 7:30. I mean, that's our experience. We had someone, this is really bad. We had someone who claimed to be a Christian give us advice on that. Well, I can show you how you can get them to bed at 7:30. I said, oh, how's that? Just give them all a little shot of whiskey. They'll all go right to sleep. It's like, really? Okay, you'll get them to sleep, but you're making alcoholics out of them right out of the gates, you know. You're going to acquire a taste for stuff they shouldn't have a taste for. So we've got the 7 realms that the church needs to get involved in. Let's break up again and pray. And we've got more people here this Sunday than we had last, so that's good. Let's make smaller groups. Let's have every section make a group. And this is voluntary. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. But if you want to, we'll have, that section makes a group there, a group here, and a group there. And we can pray how we get them involved, ask the Lord for more revelation. We can pray for those others, or for the 7 mountains itself. Pray for the church. Pray for the arts and entertainment. Pray for the different realms. And start calling Christians in those realms or to stand up in those realms. We have a lot of Christian businessmen that need to run their company like Christian businessmen. We need to pray for them, that they're not content to just do the good old boys club and, well, I know it's wrong, but it's good business. It brings in money. No, we need Christian businessmen. You want to add one more thing? We're going to need the mic, Dave, so that people online know what's being said.
I think we also should maybe address, it kind of goes with what Josh was saying about younger people, but I think a lot of times people put things on social media that turn people off big time. And God kind of, when this all started, oh, trust me, I got a mouth. And I was using it, to try, and I thought it was to try to influence people, but really most of the stuff was somewhat derogatory rather than maybe useful, constructive things. And I think, you always have to check yourself before you put something like that on to go, who am I really trying to reach, and does this actually reach them? And I always think, as soon as you started talking, while we were still gone, about righteousness, what does that look like? It looks like, presenting like God would present it. And how does that look? It doesn't mean to say that somebody is dumb because they believe a different way. So somehow, too, I believe that we have to be careful as Christians and people who want to make a change with our language that we use on social media, so that we are influencing, not driving people away.
Okay, very good point. Very good point. Probably the litmus test, because I've noticed that myself, and I try to watch myself, but sometimes we're just on there venting. Because nobody listens, and bless God, they're going to hear me. So I'm going to put it on Facebook, and we're just venting. But if it comes off like you're an idiot for not believing this, if it's worded kind of that way, like, well, if I don't go along with that, that means I'm stupid or dumb or I'm an idiot. Yeah, that's not going to influence. You're going to have all the other people who want to vent high-fiving you, but the people who need to be influenced, probably not. And I'll give one more thing. And we talked about this at leaders meeting a few years back, and it's starting to irritate me again. Why are we as Christians hitting like on stuff that is ungodly? Some friend will put something up that it's like, really? And there's 15 people from the church going like. What in the world? Why are we liking stuff that we shouldn't like? And if you'd ask them, do you actually like that? You think, are you doing it? Oh, no. Then why are you hitting like? Well, because I'm trying to be a friend. Well, quit being that kind of friend. So I'll get off of that. Let's gather and do some praying, okay?